Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Margaret Bilo, and welcome to the series of Transforming Surgical Services in the Midst of the COVID-19 Pandemic. The goal of this series is to share the wisdom and insights from our most experienced perioperative leaders across the country. We are coming together to share this new knowledge and better understand how our specialty service is transforming. I also want to take this moment to thank Whitman Partners for providing this platform for us to share this information in hopes that it would enhance communication for other perioperative leaders faced with all these unexpected challenges. At this point in time, most perioperative leaders have reached about the 30-day mark in either beginning to have COVID cases, or some facilities might be reaching their peak and maybe they're starting to stabilize. It varies across the country and it varies within dense populations. So everybody it might not be experiencing the same thing at the same time. So that's why I think this information is going to be very valuable, is that people can start taking notes and maybe, cherry picking some of the strategies that these leaders are sharing. Now we're starting to think about next steps. As you know, we're starting to peak and we know all the elective surgical cases have stopped. There are some states that are putting finite dates on when elective cases can begin. I think Washington State is talking about mid-May to start elective cases, but again, that's all variable. And so we're trying to navigate some of these milestones and get through it. So as we look at next steps, the next element that I think is really important, the last series we focused on leadership. This series will focus on education. And education is a really key component in transforming and proactively preparing for our future and how it will serve us. So today I welcome Dr. Charlene Wade. Fondly called Charlie, but Charlie comes to us. She's an experienced nurse leader and a perioperative educator. Her career spans decades of leadership in several types of organizations, including academic facilities, level 1 traumas, large healthcare systems, and smaller community hospitals, as well as long-term care facilities. Your graduate studies focused on healthcare systems and patient outcomes, and you have a reputation in the business for building innovative educational models and training programs. So welcome, Charlene.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So could you first kick us off and tell us about your current role right now, and where are you working, and what are the particular challenges you're seeing?
This particular assignment is very unique even for me. It is in Fairbanks, Alaska. Probably the most unique is, of course, the weather. When I came in November, I thought I was ready for cold weather. I live in North Carolina permanently on the beach, Topsail Island, and I believe if I had spent the night in my freezer and then compared that to Alaska, Alaska would have been, it's a lot colder. So there's no comparison. We had a high today of 40 degrees, and I feel like that's bathing suit weather now. But the weather has been unique because you got to come to work no matter what, no matter how cold it is, if it's whiteout conditions, ice fog. I did not realize you could drive on square tires, but you do when it gets 50 below. So you just kind of have to learn. And the habitat around here is you have moose and a couple of caribou, but the moose like the town people. So we've had several moose in my apartment parking lot. They're very aggressive, they're very mean, and they'll turn and attack quite easy. So you don't want to promote or aggravate them in any way. But the hospital itself, the people are wonderful. The culture here is different from any. I've been Alaska, New York, California, Florida, everywhere. But these Alaskans seem to have the attitude that, hey, if you're in trouble, I'll help you. I got in a snowbank and was there for maybe 5 minutes before 3 people stopped to help pull me out. And they said, hey, if we don't do it, nobody will. We've been secluded for so many years. We have to take care of each other. And that speaks volumes when you have a pandemic like this. They're all willing to help, and they're willing to learn new ways, think out of the box, more so than any place I've ever been. I
Well,
think that's what makes them resilient.
that's really fascinating information. And so not only in addition to you, adjusting to the changes in the pandemic, you're in a completely foreign environment, right? Foreign to you,
Yes.
right? Far from the beaches of the Carolinas. So how are you adjusting your methodology for education, and how are you have staff obviously and folks that are so cooperative and eager to learn, and that's such a blessing. But what have you done educationally to move through this pandemic there, since you are limited with resources?
Well, we have, when I got here, I, of course, did a gap analysis on what the staff needed. My first assessment showed that this hospital relies very heavily on travelers, interim workers, for their staff positions and for some leadership positions. I sat with the director and said, we need to turn this around. You cannot be profitable and serve your community with nothing but travelers and having such a heavy dependency. So I did a little research and found that Alaska has an apprenticeship program. They partner with federal government, and so I created an apprenticeship for surgical techs. That means if they have a GED, they can come into the program and I teach them on the job training. But this program is different because they have to pass national certification. They cannot just go and learn and not cash in on it. They have to prove their worth. So the program that I set up, the apprenticeship is for 2 years. And I said, no, we're going to make this competency based, not based on hours. And we're going to hire people from within your organization. We're not going outside, because that way I knew these people live here, they're invested in the community, and they, for whatever reason, haven't been given the opportunity to step into a profession. And that is what I offered them. The hospital was quite surprised when I begged for 3 seats and I had like 12 people apply. And because they said, no one will apply, you're not going to get anybody. And I think they believed me after that. So when I looked at what we needed for nurses, nursing and PACU needed at least 4 new nurses, and surgical services needs, the OR needs 5. And they said, you'll never find those people. I said, well, there's got to be some somewhere. So I went to the University of Alaska and worked a deal with one of their clinical nurses there that I would take her on a tour of our OR and let her watch a case if she would let me address the senior bachelor's of science nursing students that graduated in May. So she thought she got the best end of the deal. Well, I have recruited 12 really, really strong RNs. And since we have more than we need, the Women's Center and our med-surg floors are quite happy with me. So I've got them. We will start, I've already started my scrub tech students. I will move them on into clinicals where they're working full-time in the operating room in cases. Then I will start my PACU nurses in June the 1st, I believe we start with a cohort of 4. And then that gives me end of August to start Peri-Op 101 and get them through the didactic portions of everything they have to know, map out their clinicals, and go home next November, I hope. So it's doable, and it is great because I think if we can recruit these people, train them in the right structured way, not only will they stay, but they will be the future of perioperative services here.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And it sounds like you did some very amazing work and just had that willingness to push the boundaries a little bit and ask different kinds of questions and, tap into the community because you want the loyalty and providing that opportunity that maybe people didn't see or believe that was there. So kudos to you. That's absolutely amazing. So now I'd like to shift to a different thing. When you and I were speaking before, you were talking about the ingenuity of the community and how the willingness for people to just want to step up and they see every problem as our problem and they want to put their heads together and make a solution. And all across the country, we've had a shortage of PPE and supplies, and people are starting to have concerns about that. And you and your team have discovered a new way to resource and make PPE. So could you share that with us and tell us a little bit?
Most definitely. If anybody works in the operating room, they are familiar with the blue surgical wrap, white on one side, blue on the other. And you are aware that once you check it for their holes or tears, that you throw it away. We took that wrap, we sent it out to our seamstresses in the community that wanted to help. They watched a YouTube video that one of our nurses, also an educator, put together on how you make these masks. And the community would come to different people would come to the hospital. They would pick up this blue wrap and they made masks out of them. This is what they look like. And you can see they've got the folds. We don't have elastic for strings, but we have one side of that blue wrap. And this, I did some research and found out that while an N95 mask will block a 0.01 size particle, this will block 0.2 and up. So while it won't block the COVID virus, it will take care of TB, flus, colds. Better yet, it prevents the person wearing it from getting their particles out into the community. We take these back and we sterilize them in a steam sterilizer, put them in the bags that we use for peel pack, 10 at a time, seal them up, and we give them to the community. And since we have a mandate here that everyone has to be masked, and a large population that cannot afford a mask or they don't know how to get a mask, we give them to them. And our non-clinical staff within the hospital use these as well. It's been a great way to save our PPE because, yes, transportation here costs a lot. And with supplies already being stretched to the limit, this is one way we can save what we have. I looked at respirators, and I worked with sterile processing, and I took the respirator that's been used. You can heat it to 150 in just a stove, if that's all you've got, for 15 minutes, and then put it in a brown bag, save it for a day or two, and then you can use it again. So we've been doing that. And yes, our PPE, while it is not critically short, we are getting a little bit in the yellow. We have three. Green is we're good. Yellow is we need to conserve, and red is we are out. So we've done a few things like that, and it's really helped. Alaska is it's the #2 state in the U.S. for the fewest cases. We have a possible start date for elective surgeries on Monday. So we're waiting to hear if we can open the doors to elective surgeries and what those will be. The governor said last night we seem to have leveled off, and that would be wonderful if we could do that, because this hospital, the OR, is the money generator.
Yes, and we see that so much across the country, right? It's the economic engine of the hospital. And so I'd just like to touch a little bit about your staff. How is your staff managing through this pandemic? And I know that the two anxiety producers related to this virus are really about the virus itself, because it's unknown, and the information is we're learning it as we go, but also that the rapid pace that the information is changing. So it sounds like you're a little more controlled there than what you might be hearing on the news. How is your staff managing with all this?
It seems like every day we get a new, instead of wearing just the PPE yellow gown to pick up a patient, now you have to wear everything. And by the way, you have to wipe down the bed and for anybody who is off a day and come back, it's like a whole new world. So we really have been doing a lot of changes based on the CDC, AORN recommendations, and just good old common sense. So it's been, while we have reduced our surgeries, we've asked our staff to take off what we call overstaff days, where they use their PTO. Some of them came to us from other departments. A psych nurse came to the OR, so she's been picking up hours with the psych department. And we created a labor pool for those who had they've got to have their money to pay the rent. And they have taken jobs outside of the department on a daily basis just for the day. So I admire them for that. And they still call and say, how are things? Today was a happy day when we heard that we would probably get to open our doors to more surgeries. So we had quite a few calls from the staff wanting to know, can I come back tomorrow? No, not quite. Just give it a few more days. But it is amazing how they have been so eager to help out the hospital, because we are in the interior of Alaska. There is no other hospital. This community hospital cannot fail. And that sense of urgency and need courses through every employee. And it's been fun. It's been nice to watch. It is not about me. It's about what can I do to help. That's been a real reward for me.
Oh, that sounds like a wonderful experience.
Well, my education, my students were promised they would not be touched, that they would get their hours, they had to learn. So when we do come out of this, we'll have the staff. Mm-hmm. But to every one of them have said, I'll give back an hour a day. There'll be no overtime, or I'll take this day off. And that they're new. Some of them are brand new employees, and they're doing that. So that's nice.
That's great. Thank you. One last note on the OR. Do you have any predictions on how this might look different post COVID-19? What are you going to be doing things a little differently?
Well, we now will have patients in pre-surgical testing. They are going to have a little bit more testing than they've had before. We want to make sure that they don't have COVID, because if they do, of course, we have to treat them differently. But if they don't and we have a negative test, we can save our PPE. We can, not use negative pressure rooms. We can use, it'll be like business as usual, which is what we want. So we will be doing more testing. Patients that want a carpal tunnel will be at the lower end of the list of people who get done. It will be those that are not quite urgent, but are getting there, waiting on surgery. We're anticipating a floodgate to open if they let us start operating on Monday.
Yeah, that is the experience that I'm hearing from other leaders too. I haven't spoken to anyone with as recent date as Monday opening. Most people are looking out more towards 30 days to plan for this. Congratulations and good luck if you get to open your doors on Monday and take care of all the patients that need our support.
Well, we are still going to limit who can come into the hospital. We are still going to follow those. And if it is a surgical patient, they will be allowed one family member or caretaker. So we will be very limited in who comes in. Here in Alaska, we have a lot of children with dentals that have to be sedated. One parent will be allowed. So it might be tough, but they'll have to choose. But things like that will change the way we do conduct our business. We will stick with the telemedicine in every way that it is deemed possible.
Great. So I just want to shift gears a little bit. As you know, perioperative directors there's a high turnover in the role of periop director. They burn out quickly, and they're difficult to find replacements for. The job poses some of its own challenges and stress that contribute to that turnover. I was just wondering, given your experience and all the types of facilities that you've worked in and the problems that you've seen over your careers, this probably the biggest one, I think, is everyone has this common thought that this pandemic is the largest global impact experience.
Definitely.
How do you care for yourself? How do you keep your balance? How do you manage to keep yourself focused and so engaged in all of this, the change and the challenges?
I read a lot. I think my job is to keep current staff on the cutting edge of their skills and abilities. They don't have the time, so it's up to me. They're lucky I like to read, and I do get information from a lot of different sources, a lot of colleagues that I've met along the way. So every morning at report, where we're all 6 feet apart, I'll give them something I've heard or read the night before. I usually take 20 minutes before I go to bed, totally forget everything, and I will read. It helps slow me down to get some rest. But the other thing is, I was lucky this time. I was allowed to bring my husband, my dog, and my parrot. I have a parrot that is a scarlet macaw who is quite large, and they do keep me busy, especially on weekends. My husband and I will go to Denali Park. We'll go somewhere, even if we get stuck in a snowbank somewhere. We're always doing there's a lot to do in Alaska. There's a lot to see, And now, while I do take Friday night and Saturday off and don't read, Sunday is for planning the week and what I'm going to do. I like to run. Uh, and if I can't get out in 50 below weather, the hospital has a gym that I've been using. Now, they have closed it during this pandemic, but I still will do jumping up and down. You know, you can only sit so long. I tell my students, you know, 50 minutes, you got to get up and move, because if the butt is tired, the brain won't work. So I make sure that they get that opportunity to learn. And while they are, I'm the same way. I have to get up and move around or do something. And it's that movement that I think keeps me, that's how I cope with stress.
It's fascinating that you say that, because, you know, as you and I were talking before, I'm very focused on mind-body medicine and how our bodies embrace and embody all the stress and tension, and how it translates to disease and all of
Yeah.
that. And the two components, the two easiest things to do in a crisis, when you're in a crisis, is the breath work, that breathing, as it, shifts you into a parasympathetic state, that slow, deliberate breath work, and then movement of any kind, just like you say, it just diffuses the stress out of the body and it allows you to focus. So that's fascinating that you talked about that.
Well, perioperative is not easy to lead because it is a department where you have to manage skills and ability, knowledge, and a whole lot of ego. And that, topped with staying within a budget, it's easy to see why people get burned out. And if you don't take your mind off of that through breathing or running or teaching a bird how to talk or something, you do burn out. You burn out very, very quickly. So it's hard, but I love the operating room. I was an electrical engineer for 22 years before I came into healthcare. So when I go someplace, the first thing I do is I'm looking to see structurally and electrically, is everything sound, and would Joint Commission pass that, or what have I got to do to fix it? So most places I'm either instituting smoke-free, go clear from AORN, or I'm trying to talk docs into doing the right thing. Now, we're not going to cut corners, and I'll call them out if they do. So it's got to be a fun thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like embarrassing them, it's showing them, because they may have learned 15 years ago. Things change. And I've taught medical students, I've taught surgeons that have had strokes how to do surgery again. And if it's not fun, you burn out. So you just gotta try to make a game of things. And it's not personal, it's business. It's all about patient and the patient. If we can agree on that patient is our focus, doesn't matter. My students come and they say, oh, I had such a bad day, a really bad day. And I say, well, did you kill anybody? No. I said, well, then you didn't have a bad day. You got a lot to be thankful for.
Great. Oh, Charlie, it was wonderful speaking with you. Do you have, I have so many questions for you. One of them is thinking that the next regulatory interview that I do, I probably need to tap into you for the facility piece. So thank you so much for that. Now I'm going to keep that into my knowledge bank. But do you have any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share for other perioperative leaders that maybe, don't have that depth of experience that you do, and something to help, navigate them through these really trying and difficult times?
You have to take one day at a time. deal with those problems, because tomorrow's problems are going to be even bigger. So why worry about tomorrow? The other thing is, what you permit, you promote. So if you do not have the respect of someone on your staff, you've allowed them to disrespect you. Get it back. Get your power back. Things don't have to be as complicated as some people want them to be. I don't do drama. I tell things like they are. It's black and white for me. So you get rid of drama, people tend to listen and will follow you. It's all about know what you know, and what you don't know, don't pretend you do. Just say, I'll get that answer and get back to you. Your staff can sniff out a faker and a liar, so be upfront with them and they will rally around you.
Very good words of wisdom. Thank you so much, Charlie, for sharing that. And again, thank you so much for the gift of your time and your efforts. And
You're very welcome.
you have such a depth of information and experience. And I'm sure that the perioperative leaders listening to this series will have many takeaways and also have some fun as well. So again, thank you so much. And I look forward to connecting with you in the future.